So my name's Pooran Desai. Been working in sustainability for about 35 years as a entrepreneur, and then as well as a consultant to business and government. What I'm really fascinated by now is, can we create tools to help people understand the interconnectedness of things, that everything is interconnected. And if we could see that everything is interconnected, we would make different decisions. And that's at the heart of my view of how we move to a sustainable or regenerative future. Okay, let me share screens now. So, share screens. Joining the dots is what I like to call this, and I'll explain why I think we're in a new reality, why we need new thinking, and the new tools that we're developing to help that. But built on 35 years of sustainability experience, so started in the 1990s, set up a number of different enterprises in sustainable forestry, organic farming, recycling. Then we were growing as an organization and needed new offices. So we ended up building BedZ, Beddington Zero Fossil Energy Development, which is there on the top left, which was an eco village of 100 homes and community space and office space. It's where I lived, where we had our offices, and we had 27 university research projects around this development, and we were collecting lots of data. But we didn't have any way of really making sense of that data and communicating it. So I coined the term One Planet Living. How can we lead happy, healthy lives within the environmental resources of our one planet? And led a process to identify 10 very simple principles, intuitive principles, from health and happiness, equity and local economy, culture and community, through to zero waste and zero carbon energy, as principles that we could use to create more sustainable products, services and places. And then for 18 years, I led the One Planet Living initiative, working in over 30 countries with retailers, manufacturing companies, cities. But my main focus was really with real estate developers, looking at sustainable communities. So I had a fantastic time helping with everything from tiny homes in Australia to new quarters of cities. I raised more money and did more real estate development. So in the top center there, you'll see the block of apartments I did with in joint venture with one of our top 10 house builders in the UK. So I was very much trying to get this into the mainstream economy as product services, which people could buy into as part of the conventional economy. Now, whether that's right or not, very happy to discuss. And I see huge opportunities now for growth in the non-mainstream economy. But yeah, so I had experience as a real estate developer, which enabled me actually to work with other developers around the world. A couple of projects I'll just share there. Towards the top right, 140 homes on Bainbridge Island in Seattle, all run on renewable energy, cars to the periphery, all the space between the houses put over to things like vegetable growing. Absolutely fantastic project there. Top right, landscape scale conservation and development in Africa. So these are large estates, 1 to 2,000 square kilometers in size, conservation estates with high-end tourism, where we were brought in to do a One Planet makeover. So introducing recycling, changing the menus to local food, putting in solar farms, training all the staff in principles of One Planet Living and getting them engaged, reaching out to the community as well. And then probably my favorite project, the bottom two pictures on the right, is the extension to Disneyland Paris, where it was a 15-year engagement. We started working with Disney Imagineering and Euro Disney and imagined what a One Planet experience might be. So this opened in 2017. It's 1,000 holiday apartments, Europe's largest swimming complex, all heated on geothermal energy, all run on renewables, a farm on site. You can swim all year round in 27 degree water. So Marilyn, I won't get into the water unless it's 27 degrees, but a rewilded landscape. So more species after development than before. And for me, when it first opened and we went on site, it was such a joyful experience, because it was for me, like a vision of the future, but a utopian vision rather than a dystopian one. We also wrote the sustainability strategy for the London 2012 Olympics, so that was called the One Planet Games. And I can't take credit for this, but my colleagues held the first workshop at the UN in partnership with the Colombian government to propose the Sustainable Development Goals, using One Planet Living as the inspiration. So we brought some of our partners to the UN from different sectors, and that started the process, which ended up in the 17 SDGs. So I'm actually very proud that the SDGs are derived directly from the framework I created. So that's the background on which we've built this platform. And we what we're really trying to do now is help people just stop tearing their hair out trying to solve issues. We've become a culture which is very siloed. We try and we see things in silos. For those of you who are familiar with Ian McGilchrist's work on left hemisphere, right hemisphere division of perception, we have become very left hemisphere dominated. My own background's in neuroscience as well. So we try and solve things in isolation while we will never solve the problems in that way. So can we just start thinking about what are the outcomes we want to achieve? How do they all link together? What outcomes do we share then? These interconnected outcomes do we share? And then can we collaborate in ecosystems around shared outcomes? And we are actually we've integrated this into a digital platform, and the problems we're really solving for our customers is helping them join the dots. So in larger organizations or things like local governments, each department is doing its own thing in its own silo, and it's not usually joined up as an organization. So we're helping them join the dots and then reach out to their to other organizations, so people can work across organizations as well as across departmental silos to collaborate to solve more complex problems. We're helping them manage complex data, enhance collaboration and learning, communicate more easily, and report to different audiences at a click of a button, because everyone sees the world through their own lens. And so we have a function called lenses, so you can see the same plans or sets of plans through the lens that you're used to looking at the world, and other people can look at it, the same plan or sets of plans, through their own lens. But for me, the new reality is that we got I'm sure a lot of you will concur with this, but last year, we really started to get evidence, very strong scientific evidence, that we are crossing climate tipping points. And, it's my own belief, and I'm sure it's, shared by some of you, that, and this is in private conversation with some of the top scientists, including people like Johan Rockström of Planetary Boundaries fame, and people like Professor Sir David King, who was our UK Chief Scientific Officer, is that really, unless we change course rapidly, we are heading for a planet which will be mainly uninhabitable within 30 years. So it really is, as we all know, as serious as it gets. So what's the new thinking we need? And for me, that boils down to sustainability or regenerative design. For me, is understanding interconnectedness, that everything is interconnected. What we build determines how much we use cars. If those cars are internal combustion engine cars, they're creating pollutants which are damaging our health, contributing to climate change, supporting the oil industry, which is also creating single-use plastics, which are ending up in the oceans, filling our fish up with plastics. If we choose to eat those fish, we're filling ourselves up with plastics. And I think all of us are now full of microplastics, even to the extent where maybe every cell in our body is filled with microplastics now. And it's also killing penguins on the other side of the world. So everything is interconnected, but we haven't had the tools to visualize, manage, or measure those connections. Interestingly, I really like this quote from Buckminster Fuller, who, thinker and architect. Again, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with him. But it's very hard to teach people a new way of thinking. So it's very hard, particularly with the education that we have today, to think in any way other than in silos. We have a system now where we know more and more and more about less and less and less until, an individual knows a huge amount about virtually nothing, and we call those people experts. And they often are experts in a very tiny field, but it doesn't mean that that their opinion on what we should do is a good opinion, because it doesn't look at the big picture. So how can we help people think differently? And the best way maybe to give them tools which help them think differently. So we have created this technology using what are known as graph databases. There are two main types of databases: SQL type databases, where information is held mainly in rows and columns, and graph databases, where the information is held on the basis of its interconnectedness. So we are now leveraging those technologies, and we've created software to enable us to take any plan, break it down into its atomic structure of outcomes, what you want to achieve, actions, what you'll do to achieve them, indicators, what you might track, show how your plan, analyze how your plan, whether it's connected, whether health is interconnected with climate, is interconnected, with social justice, with pollution, whatever, economic development. But then we can connect any plan to any other plan, so that people can collaborate across different departments and different organizations. And our technology also enables us to rearrange data so that you can look at your plan through any lens that you want to look at it, and every different sector now, sometimes even different organizations have their own sustainability principles or categories, and so it becomes very hard for different sectors to talk to each other, or even different teams, say, working on a project, who come from different disciplines. They're using different frameworks. So in our platform now, you can switch lens and see this the same plan through, or set of plans through any framework that you want. Mind maps, they can get very big and they can get overwhelming. They're very good at planning, seeing the big picture. But then when you want to get into managing a project, you might just want a list of tasks that you have to do as an individual, your top, your 8 tasks or whatever. So then that automatically converts that into a more conventional list type view, so easier to manage. It automatically generates reports across ecosystems of organizations, so you can track, say, indicators across multiple organizations, or multiple projects, multiple departments, and you can also publish online. So we are a commercial company, so we although we do give free versions of our products, we do have our main customers, and what it's solving for them is the fact that they can't manage their strategy now with lots of different Excel spreadsheets, which is what they're trying to do, especially in sustainability, where it's got very complex. Understanding interconnections is driving our new strategy. That was one of the councils we were working with. So actually, when people can start seeing how different things fit together, they actually start developing different strategies, which is really exciting. It can also make things actually a lot simpler. So when you get into detail and get more and more siloed and get into more and more detail, things get very, very complicated. And in fact, if you can see the bigger picture, often, and I would say usually, things get a lot simpler. So when we did it with Oxford City Council, they were able to communicate to the public very simply around this. So this is the deputy leader of the council who was leading that process. He said made a very complex and often overwhelming process simple and accessible. So I think we're going to go through a great simplification over the next few years, that things have got very complicated as we've got very detailed, very siloed. And actually, as we start now seeing the bigger picture, things will get simpler. And, the interface allows our projects to collaborate and contribute to our ambitious targets. So hopefully we can unlock much more human potential by people being able to collaborate more easily across traditional silos. So yeah, when you log in, we've got this sort of dashboard here. You can see you can complete your vision, but the ecosystem plan is your overall vision for you and all your stakeholders, which you might have co-created with your stakeholders. But anyway, I won't go through these, the way you navigate through it. But this is an example with Enfield Council. So this is a local government in London. And what we have done is we have taken all their different plans, their food action plan, their transport plan, health and wellbeing plan, climate plan, blue and green infrastructure plan, also some of the political manifestos as well there. And when you open one of these, like the climate plan, for example, this is what you see. So this is this is how it's mapped into our system. As I said, we have, I want to say, discovered, if you like, the atomic structure of a plan, which is the outcomes, what you want to achieve, actions, what you're going to do to achieve those outcomes, and indicators, what you might track. And you can then see how they link together. So an outcome here is, say, what's this one here? Let me just click on this. So this outcome is energy saving behaviour by council staff members. That's an outcome that the council wants to achieve. Then you can see the actions which have been added around it, and indicators as well. So when you look at any one of, and you can see how they're interlinked. Energy saving behaviour is contributing to net zero council. All their staff travelling sustainably is also contributing to a net zero council. And then you can, and it's very easy, we can completely map any council. It takes us about half a day or a day to map any particular strategy. So if a council has, say, 20 main plans or strategies, it only takes 10 person days to have it completely mapped. So, and this becomes the only way in which it's easy to understand how one plan connects to another plan in departments, because, or so far we've found with any of the councils we're working with, because every department even has a different way of creating a plan or a strategy. They use different terminology. So is a goal in this strategy the same as an objective in that strategy? You don't know, because they're converting it into a common language, a common taxonomy, enables us to really understand easily what's going on. I'll show you later the ecosystem plan. This is a particular strategy and plan. We've mapped about, I think, 12 or so with Enfield Council. Then we have what we call the ecosystem plan. How do they all fit together? I'll come on to that later. But that ecosystem plan, we think, is the only place you can go to and have a clear view of what is the council trying to achieve, what is the local government trying to achieve. And that was a real, it was a real eye-opener for us and our customer cities, that they don't, customer councils, local governments, they don't know what they're doing overall now. But it then converts it into a list as well. So when you want to manage staff, it's easier to sometimes to manage it as a list. But any time you want to see, you can go into the detail of it. It also automatically generates reports, and these reports can be across multiple plans. So ecosystem reports, when people are adding data, you can just say navigate to what are we doing on transport. So I'll just click on this one. So it's moving here to transport. When I'm sharing, it's a little slow. It's just reorganizing, collecting all the data, reorganizing it. And then you can see all the activities around. I'm struggling here to navigate when I'm sharing screen. Yeah, you can see the different stories, different activities that people are doing, progress, so that you collect this across the ecosystem, not just from your department. So it enables us to very easily create reports at the click of a button. And then this is the overall ecosystem plan, as we call it. This doesn't have actions in, because actions need to be allocated to people. This is what you want to achieve as an ecosystem. So one of the issues that I think people have when they create, sort of strategic visions across multiple stakeholders is that the actions don't get done. So we never put actions, at least at the moment, within these ecosystem plans. That actions have to belong within organizations or belong to individuals. And then the ecosystem is just the outcome of the actions which are in individual organizations and departments. I hope I explained that well. So well enough to understand. But if we just take one of the indicators here, like sustainable, this indicator is actually percentage of sustainable mode share by residents. We can see these different plans that it's in. It's in the transport plan and it's in the climate plan. If we look at another one, percentage of staff commuting to work, we can see that is in the health and well-being plan for the local government as well. And then we can go and look at these plans if we want to. So we can track across different departments and, in fact, different organizations incredibly easily. And people can also say, okay, well, I'm only doing my own little bit. How is everyone else contributing to that same outcome or that same indicator? So any small action people can see as contributing, see how it's contributing to the bigger picture. I wanted to show, I'm not sure in this one, let me see if it's done, otherwise I'll just change. You can change your lens. So you can look at it through the One Planet Living lens. And in fact, I will just show, you can just look at, for example, any of these individual principles themselves. So here's health and happiness. How does that link to equity and local economy, culture and community? So you can start building up your picture and seeing how everything starts linking together, how then transport is linking across to health, where materials are, zero waste, so then waste and materials are starting to link up, how that links to carbon, and so on. And then you can change lens. Now, I'm not sure this has been, let me see if we've got SDGs example as a lens here. Let's see if this has been, we can just switch that lens. And then you can see how any of those are contributing to any one of the SDGs. So it completely rearranges the data so that you can look at it through the lens of the SDGs. Yeah, we're having a lot of fun. And I couldn't imagine now helping an organization sort through the complexity of sustainability and how it has to link to every different part of their organization without using our technology now. And we can take any organization and within a couple of days, we can really understand how that organization fits together or doesn't fit together. All the people who are taking on board, so I think, see that we have to, we face a lot of problems which we have to solve all at once. Mm-hmm. And so they generally have a view that the way we're doing things won't work, and that we have to try and do things differently. But I think it's more about individuals. So it's individuals who are starting to champion this, not necessarily organizations, but they're saying it solves this problem, and then they're taking it out within their organizations to other people who start seeing the world in that way. And I think what will happen over the next year is it'll start solving problems which people didn't even realize were problems before. They hadn't even seen them as problems before. Like, should now different council, our different local government departments be joined up in what they're doing? Now, that is not a question that most councils ask, amazingly. But this starts surfacing that and making that transparent. And enables that management. So I think that's also why I use the Buckminster Fuller quote, is that actually if you give people a different tool, they will start to see the world differently. For me, it's how do we perceive reality? and how do the tools we have and the education we have prevent us seeing reality in a way which helps us live in harmony with the rest of nature, or live as part of the rest of nature. So for me, it's about perception and how tools influence how we see the world. I think that's very specifically, you know, if you have, if we are a tool using species, tool making and using species, you know, as part of it. And so if you give someone a hammer, everything becomes a nail. You know, you start tapping things here, tapping things there. You know, so if you give people an Excel spreadsheet, they will see the world in terms of an Excel spreadsheet. And that's what we have today. Everything is in rows and columns. And actually that, and in fact, you may have had this experience if you're an Excel user. You know, of course, you can link different cells together. But you know, you can start linking different sheets together, but it's not built to link different spreadsheets together. So it forces you to work in silos. But also you sometimes link cells, and it says, because you know it's important to link those cells. And it says error circular reference if you've got that. And then you take that link out, and then you try and manage the world without that link, which at one point you knew was important. And so, for example, if you take a very simple case of a, try and in Excel, in the simplest form of Excel, of course, if you use more advanced Excel, you can actually get around that, but most of us use it in its simplest form. So, for example, if you try and just in an Excel sheet, try and model a very simple example of, say, a healthy woodland, where the trees are photosynthesizing, of course, you know, so harvesting solar energy to create sugars. They feed those sugars to the fungi. The fungi then, you know, feed back micronutrients. And then you get a healthy ecosystem or healthy woodland developing because of that, that feedback between the tree and the fungus. Now, you put that into an Excel spreadsheet and it will say error circular reference. And in fact, health really is generated by circular references. And those are the links which Excel doesn't like. So, in fact, we end up managing the world, taking out the most important links in order to generate health. The technology is just reaching the point where it's got enough functionality to really show its value. And that's really only happened in the last couple of months. We had early adopters who could see the potential of it, and now we're actually demonstrating the potential of it with them. And so now we are starting to get more and more customers on board. I think it works across different sectors. So we're working across public sector, private sector, and starting to link public-private sector. So I think over the next year, we will start seeing a greater uptake of what we're doing. We're just going to increase our sales team. Then I want to do a big round of investment because actually I want to underpin it with machine learning, artificial intelligence to help make recommendations based on interconnectedness, and to also link across to other applications. So not to create huge numbers of applications ourselves, but people already have good health applications, you know, apps on their phone or carbon accounting ones. I want to be able to link them together. So that's what we're looking at it being a small part which links together lots of different tools so that different bits of expert knowledge can be linked together in order that we can create wise decisions. I mean, our ultimate aim is to have something which we would call we call it our Angel app in code or internally as our name for it. It's like your guardian angel in your pocket. It's an app on your phone which understands you, understands your context, understands the planet, and it makes recommendations for activities, products, and services which are good, which meet three criteria. They have to be good for your health and happiness. They have to be good for your community, and they have to be good for the planet. And that's where we want to get to, and then have a reward system around that, so that if you if you start doing things which are good for you, good for your community, good for your planet, you actually have, something like a loyalty point system or even a currency around it. But that's sort of 3 years out. Yeah, we would like to connect a lot of systems using this system. So it's like Marilyn, Marilyn's idea of a meta pollinator. We see this as a very thin layer across lots of different types of software applications to help connect information together. So we want to be the fungus of the digital world, the mycelium of the digital world.